Hmm. Sorry, the color pattern on my computer changed some. Everything, okay, I'm sorry, I'm just getting confused. Maybe it updated or something, and I didn't know about it. Well, I have to get my mind, I only have one mind, I have to get my mind off of the embarrassment that was the Cowboys today, so I thought I'd make you a video. Now this is a movie channel more than anything, and I haven't covered many movies at all, but this is supposed to be more of a movie. I mean, I don't target a specific kind of channel. You know, I don't say I'm going to be a channel about this or that. But generally speaking, you're probably going to see more stuff about movies than anything else. I make videos about whatever I want to make videos about. I don't try and set a certain target audience or do certain things at certain times or do something because of something else. I do whatever I want when I do it. But it's supposed to be more of a movie channel. And I haven't made anything really, and I'm wanting to do a top 100 movies of all time for me that will come out. It might be a year, it'll be a long time, but one day I'll make it. But right now I thought I'm going to assume I am a member of the American Film Institute, and I'm going to submit 10 films to be put on their 100 Years, 100 Films list. So if you don't know, they have a 100 Years, 100 Films list where they have basically the 100 greatest American films, and I'm gonna give you my list of that today. Now this is not my top 10 favorite films, although honestly it's very close. You change a couple things around, and it's pretty darn close, but it's not all the way. There are some films that, there are some films that get on here to fill a certain void. There's some films that are on here because they're technically masterpieces, but they wouldn't necessarily be on my 10 favorite films. So, here we go. Okay. This is not in any particular order either. So, the first film is Schindler's List. Now, this is a very special film by Steven Spielberg. I'm going to knock it off so I don't read it again. Now, what it does is show, first of all, it's just a brilliant, brilliant film. It's perfect in just about every way, but it shows you how powerful films can be and how you can take something that happened historically and put it in a medium like film. And I think film is the only medium that can do this as far as an emotional payoff. And it really delivers. It really shows us a story about this man and these great things that he did for these Jews and for his fellow human beings. And it's just a great, great film. It's emotional. I mean, the ending to the film always gets me a little choked up. It's wonderful. So that would be on there. And I'm not going to talk too in depth about this. All these films will be on my top 100 films, and I'm going to probably talk a bit more in depth with those. But this is just something I came up with. And I'm probably missing a film. I'm probably going to look later and say, oh crap. Like, honestly, seriously, looking, it's going to be top 11 because I just realized there's a big film I forgot about. So I'm not going to tell you which one it was, but it's going to be a top 11. Okay, the second film I put on there, and this one is one of my favorite films. I don't know if it would be in my top 10 or not. Personally, it's for sure top 20, probably. But it's called Sunrise. It's a silent film, and I wanted to have one silent film on here. And this is actually the only silent film I've seen. But yeah, I've seen Battleship Potemkin and Sunrise, and it'd be hard for anything to top Sunrise. And what I love about it so much is it uses these first, it's a very basic story, very, very, very basic story, very basic setup, and not much really happens in it. And by the way, I'm sorry about my voice. I think I'm getting, I don't think I'm getting sick, but there's something up with my voice tonight. Excuse me, gosh. But Sunrise is a technical masterpiece and uses its camera work and technicality, and the actors. Janet Gaynor is phenomenal in this. I love her, and I loved her in A Star Is Born also. I can't say I'm a fan. I've only seen 2 of her films, but she was a phenomenal actress. Phenomenal talent. And it uses camera work and lighting and setting and tone, and it really, really creates this dreamlike state about halfway through the film, and I just love that. And it holds it, and it's such an emotional film. It's one of the most emotional films I've ever seen, and no one speaks a word of dialogue, and it's all it's all in the technicality. It's all in the technical aspects, and that's great. So Sunrise. All right, the next film. This would have been one of my 10 favorites about, I don't know, 2 years ago, but it hasn't been recently. It's probably not now. It's not a film I can watch all the time and not get tired of. I don't watch it very often. I don't really care to watch it very often. But it's a film that is so good that it cannot be denied a place on this list. And that is Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull. This film is a masterpiece about a boxer, and he rises to the top of the ring, of course, and he destroys his life outside of it. I think that's what IMDb says about the general synopsis. But it's true. This is a man with very, very violent tendencies, and he's just violent-natured, and he's cruel-natured. And this comes back to haunt him in his personal life. He destroys lives around him. He destroys his own life while building up a reputation in the ring. It's got probably the greatest actor performance I've ever seen by Robert De Niro. And the acting, it's just, honestly, this is probably, on a technical aspect, what I would consider the greatest film I've ever seen. It's perfect in just about every way. Cinematography, directing, lighting, acting, pacing. It's great. And it's such a serious and such a heavy film. It's not a film I want to watch all the time, but its quality can't be denied. Now, the next film that I would put on my list if I were putting films on here is another film that I don't know if it's in my top 10. Although, honestly, nah, it's not. Let's just end that before I get started. It's not in my top 10, but it's a very good film, and I love it a lot. And it's on here for and the main reason it's on here is because it fills a void, and that is for animated films. Animated films are very, very important with American film history, and they're very, very, well, just what I said. I'm sorry, I'm tired. They're very, very important, and they're great. I love animated films. And there was no doubt in my mind that the film I was going to put on this list was Pinocchio. This takes a very basic story from a very, very dark book and creates iconic characters, iconic movie scenes. Several of the most iconic movie scenes that still to this day, when I think of classic movie scenes, there are at least 2 or 3 from Pinocchio that come up almost instantly among the initial waves. It's a film that, honestly, I fell in love with when I first saw it. I haven't sat down and watched it all the way through since, but it's a film I always come back and think about. And it very well, I don't know if it is or not. That's the jury's out, but it could be my favorite animated film. It's one of about 5 that could be my favorite animated film. So Pinocchio is on the list. And one more thing, though, I want to point out is, while I said it could be, another film that could be is Toy Story 2, or just Toy Story. Not the first one, but I'm talking about the series itself. If I wrote those all together, those really, really compete with Pinocchio. But the reason why I think I'm going to put Pinocchio on the list is because while I might like Toy Story more, I might not, but I might like Toy Story more. The thing about it is while Toy Story is significant in film history, I feel like Pinocchio is still even more so, and especially for the time, I think Pinocchio is just an overall more significant film as far as culture goes. I know Toy Story was the first 3D animated film, and Pinocchio wasn't the first 2D animated film. But I don't know, I just feel like Pinocchio is a better film quality-wise, and that's mainly why. I mean, historically, I think still it's ingrained in our pop culture so much. And Toy Story might end up being like that too, but right now Pinocchio is like that. And it's also a higher quality film, and that's why Pinocchio gets the nod over Toy Story. Alright, next up I put 2 films together. Yeah, it's my list, but, fuck you if you have a problem with it. It's The Godfather Part 1 and Part 2. Now, these films could be my favorite film of all time when combined together. Separate, I'm not so sure, but together they could be. And what I love so much about these films is that it's the arc. It's mainly the characters, and you get so involved in what these characters are doing. And they're doing horrible, despicable things, but we always see it from their perspective. So from their perspective, this life's just the norm. And we see how they act within these social circles and all these issues and circumstances and dangerous situations. And you see these characters grow over the span of these 2 films, over the span of decades, over the span of, 6 hours or so? 7 hours of film almost? And it's amazing. It's actually closer to 6 and 7 hours, but it's just a masterpiece in filmmaking. Of course, you know it. It's one of the greatest films of all time, of course. And I don't know which one I actually prefer. We'll get to that when I do my top 100, but I just get so involved with what these characters are doing, and I just love it. So those 2 deserve a spot on the list. And I'm not about to cry. I don't know what's wrong with me. My voice is a little shaky right now. I don't know what it is. I got the water here. Yes, the Cowboys upset me, but I'm not that upset. I mean, I am, but life goes on. So, I'm used to the Cowboys not doing good. I just wasn't used to it in recent years. Or in the last 2 years. I've been used to it. Okay, next film. I don't even want to talk about this one very long. It speaks for itself. I'm sorry, but Citizen Kane deserves to be on this list. It's the ultimate film as far as its innovation with camera work and special effects. And the arc of Kane is also fantastic with Rosebud, and it shows you what this man was feeling on the inside. It shows you his entire life and how he went from being this young man who was going to oust the establishment, and he became the establishment himself as he became a newspaper tycoon. And like I said, I'm not going to talk too much about it right now. It speaks for itself. It's a masterpiece. If you haven't seen it, go out and see it. It's one of my favorite films. I haven't watched it in a long time, so I don't know how it actually compares to The Godfathers or a couple others that are still on this list. But I will say this. When I saw it, I was very surprised. And I always want to say this story when I actually talk on YouTube about Citizen Kane. If you haven't seen it and you think you might like it, then go out and see it. Don't do yourself a disservice, because I know it's the typical greatest film of all time. But what a lot of people don't know about Citizen Kane is it's actually, in my opinion, a very entertaining and very engaging film. When I watched it, I was really actually pretty surprised at how much I was enjoying it. I was sitting there thinking, people call this the greatest film of all time, and I'm actually into it. I was actually very entertained by what was going on, and I was closely following it. So it's not like this big, daunting task. It's not a 3-hour-long epic film that's slow pacing with just artsy stuff. No, it's got some artsy stuff, but it tells a very engaging, a very universally understood story, a very fun story to follow. And it's only like, I don't know, an hour 50 or so. It might break 2 hours. I'm not sure, but it's a fun film. It really is. Okay, next up is Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece, Vertigo. This is the only film that has topped Citizen Kane in recent history in any major poll for greatest film of all time. The British Film Institute Sight and Sound voters put Vertigo above Citizen Kane. And I'm not entirely sure if it deserves to be above Citizen Kane. It's sort of a toss-up for me. But Vertigo is so interesting mainly because it takes someone like Jimmy Stewart, who's, of course, oh, golly gee shucks, American hero. And him and the film both completely change throughout the course of the film. And you don't notice it at first, but slowly and gradually you start to get into it. You start to realize just how much has changed. And it's got, in my opinion, it's my favorite twist in cinematic history. And you guys can watch it for yourself to find out if you haven't seen it. But got that iconic shot where they pulled the camera back and zoomed in at the same time to create this, like, constricted, you can't get it from, like, that's not going to work. But just a great film. Great film. And that's also that might be one of my 10 favorite films. That's a great one. One film that's for sure one of my 10 favorite films that is on this list is John Ford's The Searchers. Now, I've seen this film far and away more than any other film on this list, I think. And it's a film that just puts a spell on me. It's a Western, and basically John Wayne returns back from who knows where, off doing something illegal, possibly. Either something heroic or something illegal. You can decide yourself, and I won't. There are clues dropped in. You can figure it out yourself. But his family is slaughtered by Native Americans, and his niece is abducted too. And it's a 7-year quest that John Wayne and this other boy who was sort of adopted by his brother and his wife, they embark on a quest to find his niece. And it shows you his racism, plus how people felt about Native Americans at the time. It's a race relations film. It's a fun Western. It's an odyssey. And John Wayne's character, Ethan Edwards, is one of my all-time favorite film characters. I won't talk too much about this film now. I want to do a review for it, and the review could be 2 hours long. Who knows? But I could talk so much. I could say so much about this film. Very special film to me. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's actually one of about 3 or 4 that could be my very favorite film. I just love it. Okay, the next film I want to talk about is It's a Wonderful Life by Frank Capra, or directed by Frank Capra. It wasn't written by Frank Capra. Actually, it could have been. I'm not sure. Anyway, I don't know who wrote that film. It could have been Capra. This is a very special film to me because this is the first film that showed me how powerful films can be. I remember I was probably 10 years old, and my dad bought It's a Wonderful Life on DVD and said, "Hey son, we're going to watch this on Christmas Eve." And I thought, oh, he's making me watch a movie. I don't care for this. You know, it's black and white. I don't care for this old movie. And I was in tears at the end. And I've been in tears several times at the end of this movie. I mean, even up to recent years, it still gets me emotional sometimes watching it. And that's exactly what I love so much about great films is, why the heck is it like that? I'm sorry, but I won't talk about it. I'll figure it out myself. But just how powerful and how engaging and how touching these great films can be and what they can show us. And this film shows us how great life can be, how you should strive to have a good life, and how perhaps simply by helping others and being a good person, you can live a worthwhile life. And you don't have to necessarily go out and be the big celebrity or do crazy things to have a meaningful life. But of course, it's a very, very great film. It's a perennial holiday classic, and I'm sure most of you have seen it. And there's no question to me that it deserves this place on my list. One of my all-time favorites. All right, next up is Gone with the Wind. Now, Gone with the Wind is another film that could be my favorite film of all time. It's an epic, of course, and it's got its little issues, that African-American characters are sort of stereotypical, sort of, and it acts like the, antebellum South was just this great, great place. If you're black, it's, slaves aren't mistreated. There's even a line in the movie where Ashley Wilkes tells Scarlett, "It's not the same with slaves because we treated them nicely. We treated them better than these workers that Scarlett hires later." Yeah, bull crap. But with that being said, it's a product of the time, and that's not what the film's about. The film's about Scarlett O'Hara and the people around her, and it's fantastic for that. I love the set pieces. What I love most about this film, though, and honestly, this is what I love the most just about any film, it's the characters. I get so involved with these characters, and this might be my overall favorite cast of characters in any film. That's a bold statement. I'm gonna have to think about it. Godfather gives it a run, but it's close. If it's not my favorite, it's second or third as far as the cast goes. And they go through so much in this film, so many twists and turns, and God, something's wrong with me. So many twists and turns, and events happen, and it's deep thematically, and there's also a very underlying story that you don't really pick up on. At least I never picked up on it until I viewed it again, and I realized, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is here. So, Gone with the Wind definitely deserves to be on it. Alright, now I'm down to my final film. I hope my laptop doesn't go dead on me. I'm down to my final film. And, hold on, I'm sorry. I don't want my computer to die. And I don't want to have to rush what I'm doing, so I'm going to plug it up and charge it real quick. Sorry. Okay, so I wanted to put Singing in the Rain on this list. Well, mainly because I wanted a musical, sort of the same reason Pinocchio's on the list for Sunrise. And so I guess I want to put Singing in the Rain in as well. I know we're getting ridiculous now. We're to what, 13 or 14 now, if you count The Godfather as 2. But I got to it's a musical. It's a very, very funny film as well, so they can fill the comedy void and the musical void. So it's just a lovely, lovely film, and one of my favorites. I won't talk too much more about it, because I want to get to this next one. I want to throw this next one in because I think it deserves a place. It deserves to be heard, and that is On the Waterfront by Elia Kazan, directed by Elia Kazan. And this is sort of his own statement about, or his own side, I guess, for reporting to the House Un-American Activities Committee in the 50s. God, I'm sorry, something's wrong with me right now. But it's it's sort of reflective of how America was at the time, and it's just also a very engaging story with fantastic themes and plot, and really shows the plight list for a few minutes, and honestly, I could easily just come up with a new list of films, and it'd be just as respectable. There's another word for it, legitimate. It's just as legitimate as the one I just put up. But what can you do? Okay, I hope you enjoyed my list, and I'll talk to you guys next time.